The morning mist wrapped itself around Los Angeles as Leonardo DiCaprio stepped out of his quiet garden, cradling a cup of hot tea. The world knew him for blockbuster films, for accepting awards, for making speeches about climate and humanity. Yet that morning felt different. A crisp, cream-colored envelope, its edges slightly worn, lay atop a stack of scripts and correspondence on his desk. Its stamp bore a symbol he didn't recognize, a rising sun flanked by two lion silhouettes. The words on the envelope read, "To Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio."
From the Office of the President, Burkina Faso.
He tilted the envelope towards the morning light and felt a quiet hum deep within. An assistant offered to open it, but he waved them off. This felt personal. With cautious hands, he opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten in bold strokes.
Dear Mr. DiCaprio, I am Ibrahim Traoré, Interim President of Burkina Faso. I write to you not as a politician nor as a soldier, but as a witness to the light you carry across screens and oceans. I am a boy from the plains of Burkina Faso who watched your films long ago and felt the weight of the world shift, not because you acted in a blockbuster, but because you spoke for the earth, for its people, for its forgotten corners. In moments when I felt despair, when I wondered if one man could carry the burdens of many, your voice spoke of resilience and belonging. Now, as the rains fail and the sands of the Sahel rise higher, I ask if you will come and stand with us, not as a visitor, not as a symbol, but as a witness. To walk where the earth struggles, to listen to those whose voices the world forgets. If you can come, come as a brother, not for media, not for glory, but for moments where silence speaks louder than words. In the heart of Burkina Faso, the door to a humble home stands open for you. In faith and humility, Ibrahim Traoré.
Leonardo sank down onto the leather couch. The tea cooled in his hand. His brow tightened, and then a long exhale. This was more than a letter. This was a call. He pressed the page to his chest, closed his eyes, and remembered the faces he had met in remote villages across the globe. The hopeful gazes, the desperate pleas, the quiet strength. This was different. This was a president, reaching across borders and ideologies, calling upon a storyteller to bear witness. He stood, picked up his phone, and spoke quietly to his assistant.
Cancel my meetings for the next 3 weeks. Book a flight. To Ouagadougou. The air was thick with the dry heat of the Sahel as the wheels of the private jet kissed the runway at Ouagadougou International Airport. No paparazzi, no press, no barricaded lines of journalists. Just the sound of the wind brushing across the tarmac and a lone car waiting near a weathered terminal. Leonardo stepped down from the jet, dressed simply, a plain shirt, khaki pants, and a hat pulled low. The assistant offered a bottled water. He waved it away, brushing the dust from the brim of the hat as he watched a lone figure approach. Ibrahim Traoré came forward, hand outstretched, smile faint and serene. He was younger than Leo had expected, sharply dressed in a crisp military shirt that spoke of resilience rather than aggression. "Welcome to Burkina Faso," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." Leonardo shook the president's hand and felt an immediate sense of sincerity. Not the rehearsed grip of a politician, but the firm hand of a man rooted in conviction. Thank you for inviting me, Leo replied, voice subdued. I came as soon as I could. A black SUV pulled up. Not a motorcade of 10, but a single vehicle. Traore waved away the security details hovering nearby. We'll drive ourselves, he announced. In the car, silence spoke louder than any formal introduction. The windows framed a land of sun-scorched fields and scattered acacia trees. The closer they came to the heart of the city, the more reality pressed itself upon Leo. Street vendors waved shyly, dust rising with every turn. Children barefoot, chasing a patched soccer ball, paused for a moment to watch the strange car glide by. Then came a sharp turn, and suddenly the buildings fell away. An open field, an old schoolhouse, tin roof, sun-bleached walls. The sign read, École de l'Espoir, the School of Hope. Traore stopped the car. This, he said quietly, is where I first watched one of your films. We had a generator then, and a dusty television. The sound crackled, the picture shook, but the story spoke to us. To a boy who felt the weight of the world pressing down. Leo stepped out slowly. The air was still, save for the sound of children laughing from within. He felt rooted to the spot, transported to a different era, a younger boy's moment of wonder. As he crossed the threshold, a teacher waved shyly. The walls were adorned with sketches. Heroes from movies, old magazine cutouts. And there, amid the dust and crayons, was a drawing of a man with a bow, long hair flowing, a paper tag that read, Leonardo, Protector of the Forests. Leo stopped. He pressed a hand to the doorframe. Suddenly, the movies, the awards, the applause, felt like threads in a much larger fabric. Threads that led him to this very room. Traore spoke softly. Here, we teach that the world can still be saved, not by nations, not by policies, but by moments, by connections, by one person choosing to stand beside another. Leo drew a deep breath, brushing at the sting in his eyes. The sun began its slow descent, brushing the dusty horizon with streaks of amber. At the edge of a clearing, an acacia tree stood tall, its branches a symbol of resilience. Beneath it, a circle of people had gathered, not diplomats, not journalists, not celebrities, just villagers, teachers, farmers, and a handful of children leaning shyly against their mothers. President Traore led Leo to the center. An old wooden table was set with a clay jug of water, a plate of roasted groundnuts, and a single book. Its cover was torn, edges worn soft from countless hands. This, Traore said quietly, is where we talk about the future. Not in palaces, not in skyscrapers, under the shade of a tree, where every voice can be heard. Leo sank down cross-legged beside the table. The children edged closer, shy and wary. An older boy, maybe 10, offered him a drawing. A lion perched atop a hill, looking out across the savannah. Underneath, in bold lettering, the words, "We protect what we love." Leo smiled and pressed the drawing to his chest. "That's right," he said softly, voice shaking. "That's what I've tried to tell the world for years." Traore watched as Leo spoke with the children, as he asked their names, listened to their stories. In that moment, Leo felt a shift inside him. The sound of the city falling away, replaced by the hum of a land rooted in belonging. "Why did you ask for me?" Leo finally asked, brushing the dust from his hands. Traore smiled faintly. "Because when the world watched your films, you gave a boy from Burkina Faso a chance to imagine more, to believe, to stand when it was easier to fall. Today, I ask for you to stand with these children. Not for glory, not for applause." Leo wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. Not the rehearsed emotion for a camera, not the polished glance for a director, but a quiet, private release. One felt deep in the heart. "Then I'm here," Leo said simply, "for as long as you'll have me." The following morning, long before the sun blazed its claim across the savannah, Leo rose and stepped outside. The air was crisp, faintly scented with earth and wood smoke. The compound was quiet, except for the soft shuffle of a few goats and the whisper of wind through the tall grass. Today was the day Traore had promised him, a chance to witness how this land molded its leaders. Not through marble corridors or media sound bites, but through open fields, communal meals, and the hard, hopeful work of planting a seed. A group of volunteers was already at the edge of a dusty plot of land when Leo arrived. They waved shyly, motioning for him to join. Traore was there too, shirt sleeves rolled, bare hands deep in the earth. Without a word, he handed Leo a small sack of seeds. "Baobab," the president said softly. "The tree of life. We plant these knowing we may never sit in their shade, but knowing others will. That's how this land grows. That's how its people rise." Leo sank to his knees, pressing a seed deep into the soil. Suddenly, the hum of insects, the warmth of the earth, felt like a sacred ritual, one that connected him to countless generations. "Each seed a promise," he said quietly. "Each promise a prayer," Traore replied. As the sun crested the horizon, a boy tugged at Leo's shirt. The boy pointed to a row where tiny seedlings already winked in the morning light. "Someday, I will climb this," the boy announced, voice full of conviction. Leo smiled, brushing the boy's hand. "Someday," he promised, "you will." Days later, when the planting was done and the first rains of the season had softened the earth, Traore invited Leo to a special gathering. Under the sprawling branches of an ancient baobab, a circle of villagers, children, and elders came together as the sun sank low. Leo was offered a simple wooden stool beside the president. The air was filled with the sound of drums, soft, hopeful beats that spoke of heritage and belonging. An elder, voice quivering but strong, rose and spoke in the local tongue. Traore translated quietly for Leo. He says this tree has witnessed countless stories, stories of pain and joy, of loss and renewal. Today, he welcomes you as part of that story. Leo felt a lump rise in his throat. All the years he had acted roles on screen, he thought, could never compare with the role he was being offered now. Witness, student, brother. A boy stepped forward, shyly presenting him a handcrafted carving, a lion resting under a baobab. "This," the boy said in halting English, "is you and us. Strong roots, strong heart. Leo sank to one knee and embraced the boy. The crowd cheered quietly, the sound rising like a prayer. In that moment, Leo felt the threads of belonging weave themselves deep within him. Here, far from paparazzi and the noise of fame, he had found a piece of himself he didn't know was missing. As the stars winked awake in the African night, Leo rose and spoke from the heart, voice shaking. I came here to understand, but I found a family. Whatever I can give, I will give. Whatever you teach, I will carry with me. Whatever grows from this land will also grow in mine. The circle of people pressed closer, hands upon hands, hearts upon hearts. Under the witness of the ancient baobab and the watchful stars, a bond was sealed, one that no headline or red carpet could ever match. The next morning, Leo rose before the sun, the soft cries of roosters and the hum of life calling him to the courtyard. The air felt different, charged with a sense of belonging. In the early mist, he watched villagers walk to the fields, children laughing as they balanced baskets upon their heads. President Traore was already awake, hands deep in the soil of the new garden. Leo joined him, brushing the rich earth between his fingers. Together, and with the help of volunteers and local children, they planted the first row of saplings meant for the academy grounds. It was quiet work, but every seed felt like a promise. Leo spoke as he pressed one into the ground. Each one of these will grow, will bear fruit, will give shade, will outlast both of us. Traore smiled, brushing dirt from his hands. Then this is how we lead, my brother. Not with weapons, not with force, but with roots and growth. Around them, the children giggled and sang songs as their tiny hands patted the soil down. The sound of life rising from this place was intoxicating, hopeful, unbroken. Leo looked at the president and nodded. This is why I came. Not for glory, not for a headline, but for this moment, planting life together. They worked until the sun rose higher, the air growing warm and golden. At one point, Leo stopped and watched as a boy pulled a sapling closer, brushing its leaves lovingly. The boy waved to Leo, and Leo waved back. In that wave was a new understanding, a seed of belonging that no camera could capture. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this, Leo said quietly as the morning waned. Traore placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. Thank you for showing the world that a hero can be many things. A listener, a witness, a friend. You came as a visitor, but you will always be one of us. Leo smiled, brushing away a bead of sweat and a quiet tear. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. The silence spoke for itself, and in that silence a bond was rooted, strong and deep, like the ancient baobab that watched over them. As the afternoon sun began its slow arc toward the horizon, Leo found himself standing beside President Traore, under the old baobab tree that watched over the school and its growing garden. Its massive trunk and gnarled branches framed a scene that felt timeless, a witness to countless stories and countless lives. Tomorrow morning, you must return, Traore said quietly. His voice carried both warmth and a hint of reluctance. Leo nodded slowly. I came here expecting, I don't know what. A handshake? A photo? A moment. But I found more. You gave me belonging, a sense of purpose. He glanced at the children playing in the distance, their laughter rising like music. They gave me that too. Traore smiled and crossed his arms. looking out across the dusty courtyard. We all walk this earth searching for belonging. Sometimes it finds us in unexpected places. Sometimes in the heart of a boy who watched a movie long ago. Sometimes in a man across the ocean, showing up when it matters. Leo was quiet for a moment, brushing a hand across the rough bark of the baobab. People will ask why I came, what I gave, what I received. And when I tell them, some won't understand. He sighed and looked at Traore. But I don't need them to understand. I understand. Traore nodded. That's enough, my friend. Let your heart remember this place. Let your voice carry its stories. Let your hands continue planting wherever you go. The two men stood there for a long time, surrounded by the quiet strength of the land, the hopeful cries of its children, and the rustling whispers of the baobab. As the sun sank lower, brushing the horizon with amber and crimson, Leo pulled the small wooden box from his bag, the one gifted to him by Traore upon arrival. He opened it slowly and placed inside a smooth stone he had picked from the garden that morning. May this stay here with you, he said quietly, voice shaking. A piece of my heart. Traore smiled and placed a hand over the box, pressing it to his chest. And a piece of ours goes with you, my brother. No borders can contain the threads we've tied here. In that moment, under the ancient tree, surrounded by whispers of wind and the faint songs of a hopeful land, two men embraced as friends, as brothers, as witnesses to a world that can still change. Not through weapons or titles or glory, but through moments, through stories, through kindness rooted deep. As the afternoon sun bathed the quiet courtyard of the Maison de Résilience in golden light, President Traore and Leonardo DiCaprio stood side by side. The sound of children laughing and playing floated faintly from a nearby field. The air was rich with the smell of earth and freshly baked bread from a tiny kitchen. Leo stood quietly, looking down at a piece of paper he held in his hand, one of the many letters he had received from the children. The paper was slightly torn at the edges and smudged with pencil marks, but its words spoke louder than any speech. Thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us. We have stories too. He felt a sting in his heart. It was such a simple message, yet it weighed like a stone upon him. Slowly, he glanced at Traore, who watched with quiet pride. I've acted in countless films, Leo said quietly, brushing the edge of the paper with his finger. I've been a hero on screen, a man on a mission, a revolutionary, a businessman. But this, he waved the paper gently, this feels more real than any role I've ever played. President Traore smiled, resting a hand on Leo's shoulder. That's because it is real, my friend. Not a scene, not a script, just life. Leo looked out toward the courtyard where the children waved shyly from a distance. These kids, they're fighters too, aren't they? Traore nodded, voice soft. Each one has a story of resilience. They rise every morning, knowing that every breath is a victory. They deserve to have their stories heard, not just here, but across the world. Leo pressed the letter to his chest and drew a long breath. Then let's tell them, Mr. President. Not as a blockbuster movie, not for applause, not for accolades. Let's build a space where their voices can echo far beyond these walls. Traore smiled, the kind of smile born of trust and deep understanding. That is why I invited you here, not for what you are, but for who you can help others become. The rest of the afternoon passed like a scene from another world. The president and Leo, side by side, toured a modest space adjacent to the Maison de Résilience. Its walls were lined with photographs of smiling children, their eyes hopeful despite hardships too great for their years. This, Traore explained, brushing dust from a windowsill, is where we want to build a space for storytelling. A room where these children can learn to write, to create films, to share their stories, not as statistics in a headline, but as human beings with names and voices. Leo felt a lump rise in his throat. He pictured a room like this, lined with old cameras, microphones, paper and pens, computer screens lighting hopeful faces, not as a symbol of charity, but as a beacon of empowerment. I've been telling stories for 3 decades, he said quietly, looking at Traore. What if I can help these kids tell theirs? The president smiled and nodded slowly. That is the greatest gift you can give. As the sun sank low, Leo wandered out into the courtyard, where the children were now clustered. They waved shyly, giggling and smiling as he waved back. Suddenly, one boy, no older than 10, stepped closer, holding out a folded piece of paper. Leo sank down to one knee and received it with both hands. The boy said shyly in a mix of French and the local language, "Pour vous," for you. Leo smiled, brushing a hand over the boy's closely cropped hair, and opened the paper. It was a drawing of a lion standing tall under a bright sun. Underneath it read, "Be strong, never give up." Leo felt a sting in his eyes and pulled the boy into a gentle hug. "Merci," he whispered. As the boy pulled away, Leo stood and waved to the group. "You're my heroes, all of you," he announced. "Never forget that." That night, under a starlit sky, President Traore and Leo sat together outside the Maison de Résilience. The air was crisp and the soft hum of crickets floated through the darkness. "I came here thinking I had a lot to give," Leo said slowly, "but it turns out I had more to learn." Traore nodded. "That is the nature of life, my brother. True strength is knowing when to listen." Leo watched the stars wink overhead and smiled. "You've taught me more in these few days than many teach in a lifetime." "I only gave you space," Traore replied quietly. "The rest was already." Leo sank into silence for a moment, listening to the night, to the faint sound of a child singing somewhere in the compound. When he spoke again, it was with a voice that shook slightly. "I want to help," he said. "Not as a guest star, not as a visitor passing through, not as a name on a plaque. Let me be a part of this story, long after the spotlight is gone." The president placed a hand over Leo's. "Then you are already one of us." The following morning, before Leo's departure, a small gathering was held. Not in a grand hall, not in a space adorned with official insignia, but in the courtyard where the children played. The air was charged with a quiet anticipation. President Traore stood before the group, flanked by teachers and caregivers. He announced, "Today, we mark the beginning of a new chapter for this community. Not one built by politicians or stars, but by friends who understand the strength of a hopeful heart." He turned to Leo. "Through your generosity and vision, we will build a center for storytelling, a space for learning, and a beacon for the future." Leo stepped forward, voice shaking slightly. "Thank you for allowing me to be part of this family. These children, their courage, their strength, have changed my life. Whatever I can do, however I can help, I am committed." A quiet hum of emotion swept through the crowd. The children smiled shyly, some wiping their eyes. An old teacher stepped forward, placed a hand upon Leo's shoulder, and spoke words that carried the weight of countless struggles. "May this seed you plant today grow into a forest for generations to come." Leo pressed a hand over his heart, swallowing the lump in his throat. "That's the best award I've ever received." As Leo departed that evening, the children lined the dusty path, waving and calling out. The boy who had given him the lion drawing waved the picture wildly, grinning ear to ear. Through misty eyes, Leo waved back until the car disappeared from view. Beside him, a young aide spoke quietly. "He came as a guest. He left as a brother." President Traore, still standing where Leo had embraced the children, smiled faintly as the sun set.
"He came as a visitor," he said softly, "and he left as a witness to their strength, their story, and their future." Then, brushing the dust from his hands, he gazed out at the playground where the children still sang and smiled. "A witness can carry a flame across the oceans, and tonight, that flame shines brighter than ever." 6 months later, under the blazing Burkina Faso sun, the new Storytelling Academy stood tall. Its walls were a soft cream, adorned with colorful murals painted by the very children it served. The roof shimmered faintly in the afternoon light, and a bold wooden sign read, "L'Arbre des Histoires," the Tree of Stories. Today was the official opening. President Traore stood at the gates, flanked by teachers, students, and families. At the center, smiling quietly, and shaking hands with a line of hopeful children, was Leonardo DiCaprio. In those 6 months, Leo had kept every promise he made. Together with Traore, he had mobilized a global network of donors, mentors, writers, and filmmakers. The academy wasn't just a building, it was a beacon, a place where children who had felt forgotten could find belonging, where their stories would matter. Leo felt a tiny hand slip into his. He looked down to see the boy with the lion drawing. Older now by half a year, a shy smile lighting up his dusty face. "What is this place for?" the boy asked, brushing a hand across the academy's fresh paint. Leo sank down to the boy's level. "It's for you. It's for every child here who has a story. This place is where you can write it down, speak it aloud, or film it for the world to see." The boy beamed, brushing the lion drawing that now hung framed in a nearby entryway. "Then one day my lion can roar. Leo smiled, brushing the boy's hair. Yes, your lion can roar, and the world will listen. At the official ceremony, President Traore stood beside Leo, gazing out at the gathered children, families, and volunteers. The air was charged with emotion. I watched a boy fall down countless times in a black and white film, Traore spoke, voice rising. Each time he stood back up, and that boy inspired a child across an ocean. Today, that child has become a man, and that man has returned to build a bridge between worlds. He placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. Today is not about movies, not about politics. Today is about a lesson that transcends both, that the greatest weapon we have is a hopeful heart. Leo stepped forward to applause. The academy shimmered with possibility behind him. I came here thinking I was doing a service, he said quietly, voice carrying across the courtyard. But I leave knowing I have been given one. You have taught me what belonging means, what it means to rise after every fall, what it means to stand for something far bigger than ourselves. He glanced down at the boy holding the lion drawing, smiled, and pressed the drawing to his chest. Today, this academy becomes more than walls and paint. Today, it becomes a witness to every child who refused to be silenced, to every person who refused to give up, to every lion who refused to stop roaring. As the academy opened its doors, children surged inside with uncontainable joy. They discovered a room lined with shelves of books donated from around the world. Another room offered cameras, microphones, and recording equipment. In a small courtyard, a circle of chairs was set for storytelling, a symbolic reminder that every voice belonged. Leo wandered quietly through the spaces, brushing the spines of books and smiling as he watched children tentatively pick up crayons and pens. The boy with the lion drawing waved from across the room, grinning as if to say, "We can do this, together." A teacher spoke to Leo quietly. "This is more than a school. This is a revolution of belonging." Leo smiled faintly. That's the best thing any of us can build. Over the months that followed, stories flowed forth from the academy like water from a spring. Short films, drawings, songs, poems. Every piece captured the beating heart of a new generation rising from the dust. The academy became a beacon for aid and collaboration across the globe. NGOs flocked to support it. Writers came to teach, filmmakers came to listen. Young voices from Burkina Faso began making their way to festivals and global platforms, carrying the flame ignited by a boy, a lion, a president, and a visitor who refused to forget. A year later, at the United Nations General Assembly, President Traore spoke before a packed chamber. "I am here to tell you the story of a boy with a lion drawing," he said, voice strong, "a boy whose voice was almost silenced, but whose words can now travel across the world." He pulled from his jacket the original lion drawing and held it high. The room fell silent. This is what belonging looks like. Not borders, not weapons, not force. Belonging is built by ears that listen, hands that help, and hearts that open. Then he smiled and spoke the words that would be quoted across countless media platforms that night. "Lion can rise from a whisper. All he needs is a witness." Leo watched from the visitors' gallery, eyes misted. This was no longer about him. Not about movies or accolades, not about celebrity. It was about belonging, about a flame passed from hand to hand until it became a beacon too bright for the world to ignore. Back in Burkina Faso, Under a warm morning sun, Leo stood with Traore and watched as a group of children acted out their own short play about strength and belonging. They waved as Leo waved back. "You came for a moment," Traore said quietly, "and gave a lifetime." Leo smiled, brushing the boy's lion drawing still framed upon the academy wall. "I came as a visitor, but thanks to you, I'll always be a witness." That evening, as the stars winked down upon the academy and its laughing children, Leo stepped into a quiet courtyard. He sank down upon a worn, wooden bench and pulled a small notebook from his shirt. With a pen shaking slightly in hand, he began to write. To the boy with the lion drawing, to the president who refused to forget, to the children with the strength to rise. You have taught me that belonging is a force stronger than fear. Whatever role I have played in this, you gave it meaning. Thank you for reminding the world that a lion can rise from a whisper. And sometimes, one voice can teach many how to roar. He closed the notebook, placed it upon the bench, and looked out at the academy, where the sound of children's laughter floated upon the warm African night. The best stories, he whispered, are the ones that continue long after the page is turned. With that, Leo rose, wiped a single tear from his cheek, and stepped quietly into the night. A witness now, forever, a part of the story.